Well, I'm LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Matt Benson. Matt, are you ready to do this?
Ready.
All right, let's go. Matt is a certified financial planner. He is the owner of Sonmore Financial. They're a financial firm providing uniquely personal, process-driven guidance, putting clients first. He's been featured in leading media and news outlets such as Bloomberg, Forbes, MarketWatch, CNBC, USA Today. He is a committed family man and community member. Matt, tell us a little bit about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Awesome. Thanks, George. Yeah, I grew up in Nebraska. My parents were really fiscally responsible, and dad was an engineer, and I had two uncles that worked in the financial services industry. So really kind of piqued my interest in becoming a financial advisor. Uh, when we were kids, we'd go on family road trips, and my dad would pop in a little cassette tape. We'd listen to Zig Ziglar for family road trips, and that kind of again the significance of that is it piqued my interest in self-development and entrepreneurship. So anyway, dad being an engineer, two uncles in the financial services industry, being exposed to entrepreneurship, you mix all those things together, and out pops a financial planner. So that's kind of how I got to be where I am. And when I was in probably junior high, I had a paper route, started investing money for my paper route when I was a teenager, and that's really kind of how I got into to the finance space and kind of what really piqued my interest.
I love it. What kind of an engineer was your dad?
He's a mechanical engineer. Yeah, mechanical engineer. He worked for a company that in Nebraska they made lawnmowers, a company called Exmark that was a division of Toro.
Nice.
Yeah,
What's he doing listening to Zig Ziglar? Just trying to sharpen the saw.
yeah, just trying to sharpen the saw, I think was the deal. Yeah, but it was it was good, and then I read his books, and he's since passed away and such, but I read several of Zig's books after I knew who Zig Ziglar was. But when I was a kid, it was always like, this is boring. Come on, let's do something different.
But turns out, I mean, fascinating. Just getting that wiring from an early age. I'm confident that you feel like you benefited from that quite a bit.
Oh, totally. And I think certainly the connection between financial planning and engineering, them both being a lot of math, that connection is easy to make. But and they're not dramatically dissimilar in a lot of ways. I mean, as an engineer, you're presented with a problem and you're using math to provide a solution. And financial planning is very much the same. The only challenge is you insert people into the equation, George, and that just makes the that much harder. You know what I'm saying?
We are a lot messier than numbers and figures on a sheet of paper.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But that's yeah, I really like what I get to do for my clients. They come in, and a lot of our clients, they're trying to navigate a new road. For a lot of them, it's as they're approaching retirement, or just have entered retirement, and they're going down a path they haven't been down before. And uh we're taking them down that path and helping them to dodge tax bombs and dodge, investment bombs and things like that along the way, and how to get health insurance before 65, before Medicare, and fun stuff like that. So I know that doesn't maybe sound like fun if I maybe in my tone it sounds intriguing, of course, but surface level, a lot of that stuff on its own, to be totally candid, quite boring. But being able to put a solution to somebody's challenges is really fulfilling.
Yeah, certainly. I think you could certainly make jokes and say that it's boring, and they really are bombs. Where if one of these goes off and we're close enough to it, it's going to have a profoundly negative effect. Taxes, investment decisions, health decisions, and making the different elections when it comes to Social Security and Medicare. I think that it's pretty serious stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of these things. And the challenge, sometimes I'll oversimplify it. The accumulation phase, I'll kind of oversimplify, um, in that by and large, when you're accumulating assets, it is a little bit more complex than what I'm just about to say here. But by and large, though, you could say, hey, let's just pick a good growth mix, make contributions to it over a long period of time. Don't look at it when it goes down, and just keep putting money into it. But once you start entering the distribution phase, retirement, um, there's a lot more moving parts than just, hey, pick a good growth mix and keep putting money into it every pay period. Like you said, for a lot of retirees, the single biggest expense, though they don't think about it in this way, the single biggest expense that they'll have in retirement is taxes, right? And if you can manage your lifetime tax situation through proactive planning, you can shave off, 5, 6 figures off your lifetime tax by just planning and looking ahead. So it is fun work. It's not a good way to make friends at a cocktail party necessarily, having discussions like these, but it's fulfilling and enjoyable work for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's it's such an interesting thing that the accumulation stage, obviously you're tailoring your solutions to the client, and that is pretty straightforward. You target a date in the future, you start putting money into it. But when you actually start withdrawing or decumulating or distributing the money, then it becomes very, very, very specific to what client's going to be doing and where they're going to be and who they're going to be doing it with, and so many different considerations.
Oh yeah, I mean totally, totally, totally. And there's so many different variables, like we said, of the tax piece, the insurance piece, the investment piece, and then you throw in the wrinkle. A lot of those things can be, in some ways, quite easy to quantify, the things that I just rattled off. But then you throw in the wrinkle of the individual people, right? And I kind of kidded, I kind of joked about it earlier, but it's totally true. My knowledge is different than your knowledge and is different than someone else, and my emotions are different than your emotions and someone else's, right? So, building out a solution for somebody, like when the markets go down 20%, when you're in the accumulation phase, a lot of times you can bite your tongue and say, you know, I don't love that my balance is 20% lower than it was 12 months ago, but you know what? I've got 10 years until I'm going to retire. This will all be fine. Well, newsflash, the markets don't get the memo that, you know, John Doe entered retirement and that they can't pull back anymore, right? The markets don't get that memo. In fact, they kind of get the opposite memo in some ways, right? For a lot of people, it's very normal for the markets to pull back, and the chance that they pull back at some point in your first 3 to 5 years of retirement, or if you happen to retire last year in 2022, your first year of retirement is very likely the markets will pull back. So how do you combat that? How do you build a plan that can stand the test of time? Because we're for sure not going to accurately predict the future. How do we build a plan that can handle all of these variables that we can't predict accurately?
Definitely needs to be dynamic, and something that I'd like to think that we could just set it once and then forget it and we'd be in good shape, but that's definitely probably not the case when it comes to what we're talking about.
No, that's exactly right. There is far more things that are outside of our control than inside our control. That is for sure. And I'd say it can make it more challenging sometimes, because you oftentimes the things that are trumpeted the loudest are the things that are the most outside of your control. If you turn on a lot of financial media outlets will promote, hey, it's time to sell or it's time to buy or whatever, and there's no possible way that you're going to accurately going to be able to predict when the markets are going to be up or going to be down. But that's the thing that's trumpeted the most to people. Um, so it can be quite challenging because I think the perception is that that is a controllable, but it most certainly is not.
Yeah, it's there's some pretty funny memes out there that going pretty hard on folks like Jim Cramer, how his timing has been really, 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 really bad when it comes to that stuff. So I think you're spot on. When you're working with engineers and more traditionally analytical folks, talk
Mhm.
about oversimplifying things. I mean, we each have a way that we like to process information.
Mhm.
And if I get too much information, I can't make a decision. But if I don't get enough information, then I can't make a decision. How do you think about that?
How do we think about that? Yeah, well, our delivery to clients, oftentimes we start with simplicity and back by complex, if you will. So usually our deliverable to a client is pretty is relatively brief, and then for a client that wants to see more, we can give more. But I think a lot of times, when someone's coming to us, they're seeking they're not looking to hand the baton off entirely. They want a partner to walk with down this path. And to be clear, we don't want someone that's going to hand the baton off. We don't want to be running this race without them. They need to know what's going on, and we need to know what's going on in their plan as well. Um, so we're trying to give that client as much information as they need, as you said, to be able to process the information appropriately. And depending on the topic, sometimes our clients look at it and they say, "Okay, I understand what's going on here, but I don't really want to know every single nitty gritty detail, Matt. Like, we trust you, we understand what's going on. Boom, you go. Perfect." And then other clients, yeah, we work with a ton of engineers. We work with a lot of like clients that have their CPA, whether they're a practicing accountant or like work in the financial sector or whatever else. A lot of people that are analytical about things, and they like to see the 3-page spreadsheet of how we arrived at that conclusion. So anyway, I'll start with simple and then back it by more complex.
I think that that makes a lot of sense. We have so many different resources that can help us with the that produce wonderful reports and spreadsheets, but I mean, I imagine that people like just having the ability to have a conversation with you and to talk through things as like a sounding board and because there's a lot going on.
100%. And a lot of times, and I've just found this over my 10 plus years in the financial services industry, is that in the beginning, I would sometimes use these flashy reports as a crutch, to because I didn't know what I was talking about. I would just, oh, here's this report that shows something, and uh, I, I don't know if I can come up with the quote offhand here real quick, but I think maybe as Mark Twain. If I would have had more time, I would have been able to explain it with less words, or I would have made it shorter, right? Um, Totally true, right?
Yeah, I think that that's a good one for sure. And now I'm wishing that I knew the exact quote as well. So simplification, oversimplification, undersimplification. Back to the idea that taxes are the biggest expense that we're going to have in retirement, and how some simple changes up front can make this massive difference. I have a healthy sense of urgency about everything, and that
Mm.
doesn't mean that other people do. Um, how do you think about that, or how do you try to inspire people to be more urgent? Do people come to you with a pretty good sense of urgency?
Yeah, well, you may not have to be urgent right now, right? It just depends at what stage you're at. A lot of times we're trying to, if you can imagine your lifetime tax on a graph, right? So imagine, you've got the over time, what in your working years, typically you're going to be earning more as time goes on. Then eventually you retire, your income's going to drop, likely, maybe not. Uh, and then once you turn on Social Security, your income's going to go up. Once you have to take required minimum distributions, your income will go up even more. Um, we're not trying what we're trying to do there is we're trying to pay taxes when we're in the valley years, when we're in the low years, and then when we're in the high income tax years, we're trying to defer, right? So if you're, say, 57, and you're on the back end of your career as an engineer and you're making close to $200,000, and you're in the 24% tax bracket, and you're going to retire next year, and you know that you're going to drop from 24 to 22 or even 12%, why would you want to do Roth contributions right now? Do pre-tax. Give me the tax benefit today. I'll convert it next year when I'm in a lower bracket, right? You could quite easily make the argument, even though now too, just because we're at 30-year lows for income tax rates, to say pay the tax today. Who knows what taxes will be like in 5 years and 10 years down the road too. So yeah, I think it's just informing people. Uh, we're not trying to twist anyone's arm into saying, hey, you need to have an urgency about this. Um, though oftentimes we're a couple of years out from where they really need to be urgent on things. So we're trying to plant that seed several years ahead. And then when that time comes where it's like, hey, we need to do Roth conversions, or we need to do tax gain harvesting as opposed to tax loss harvesting, and some of those fun things, um, that we've already been talking about that before we get to the point where it's like, all right, now's the time, go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, the more proactive that we can be about things, obviously, the better off. And the more time we have, then it's not an urgent thing. And we're not running around like our hair is on fire and needing to hit deadlines and stuff like that. You can make an informed decision and hopefully do your best to make more logical decisions versus emotional.
No, that's 100%, 100%.
Yeah. The whole emotional thing does not normally lead us to make good financial decisions. So,
That's right.
well,
Yes.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage?
Yeah. Well, you can go to our website's Sonmore Financial. That's SONMORE financial.com. And we post a monthly blog and a monthly newsletter there, so you can go on there and subscribe to our newsletter and blog. And we write it, so we think it's pretty good, but we'll let you be the judge of it.
I appreciate that. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Matt your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to sonmorefinancial.com. That's SONMORE financial.com and check out all the great resources, subscribe to the blog, get the newsletter. And if you are like me and you appreciate what Matt's been talking about, get in touch and find out if it's a good fit. Thanks again, Matt.
George, thank you.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.